As Jacqui said, not like Barclays hasn't been mentioned enough, so they've asked me to come up from Barclays and say a few more words about what we do. So bear with me, but I'll be really quick. And on behalf of us all, I know we're very sorry not to have Ebru here with us today in the room. We've been a very proud partner of the football industry for over 20 years now. Both the Premier League, now the FA with the Women's Super League, and most importantly today, with Women in Football. They are an organisation, as Jacqui talked about, that works tirelessly to ensure women are equally represented across the football industry. And for that, we are incredibly grateful for all of the hard work that they do. It's also something we are passionate about at Barclays. Currently, only 60% of girls in this country have the ability to play football in their PE curriculum at schools. And only 40% have the ability to play football in extracurricular after-school activity. And they're numbers that we need to change. And they're numbers that we are absolutely committing to changing. And that's why we're working very closely with our friends at the FA to make sure that football is available for all girls in England by 2024. And in fact, you may have seen that on Wednesday last week, the FA with us hosted the biggest ever football session. And on one day, we saw over 90,000 girls across the country play football in schools, which is an amazing achievement. And for many of those girls, it will probably be the first time they've had the chance to play football. But most importantly, it will not be the last. And then finally, to see all of you here in the room today is so encouraging, because I know you will all play such an important part of that journey to continuing to change the football industry and making sure that it really is accessible to everyone. So I think it just leaves me to introduce today's first keynote session with Kelly, who has already been introduced by Jacqui and really needs no introduction. All I will say is that Kelly knows firsthand the challenges that women face in the football industry in terms of progressing through it and at the professional level. So I know you're going to learn an awful lot from the discussion, but I also know you're going to walk away really impassioned and really inspired to do more and continuing to change the football industry. So thanks very much and enjoy the day. Thanks, Kelly.
Great to see you. Great to see you. How mad was it hearing from Tom there? And we gave him a round of applause for saying that football's going to be open to all girls in another 2 years. And we're clapping that as if that's like... Well, imagine if we said all boys would have access to football in another 2 years. And I'm not denigrating the support, by the way, to make that happen. But you understand the point I'm making, right? Imagine what it was like back when you were coming through with all the talent and ability you had. Just paint a picture, if you wouldn't mind, of what it was like back then.
Yeah, no, I was a part of that last week, the Let's Girls Play campaign. It was just warmed my heart so much, because seeing the girls, you know, play, so it was their first time kicking a ball, seeing the enthusiasm, it just made my day, because growing up, like a lot of my generation and the generations before me, we never had that opportunity. I loved football from a very young age. I would kick a tennis ball to school. If I didn't have a tennis ball, it would be a stone. So I always had something sphere object at my feet. I just loved it, from even a balloon in the living room when we break the vases. So it was always embedded in me, and I just had to play football with the boys, because girls wanted to play netball or just be off the playground, just having fun, just doing whatever the girls wanted to do. I wanted to be getting muddy with the boys and, you know, jumpers down for goal posts. As soon as the playtime bell rang, I was out there with the boys, after school, out with the boys. And luckily enough for me, I was good, so I was accepted straight into playing. I was always one of the first or second to be picked. But, you know, for young girls now, if they don't have that self-confidence or self-belief in themselves, and they don't have a girls' football team to play on, then we lose them. So this is why Barclays is so good and so dear to my heart, because, you know, it's giving opportunities for girls, something that I never had. And I've got a daughter who's 2.5. I want her to grow up and have equal opportunities in football, not just playing football, but in work balance too.
You broke a vase with a balloon? That's how hard you could kick things, girl.
No, I broke a vase with a proper football, and then when my mum only allowed a balloon in the house.
I don't blame your parents for only giving you a balloon. Blimey, that's nuts. So when you clearly had this ridiculous amount of talent, dare I say for a girl, because that's how it was in those days, like what happened next? What could you do with it?
I played on my school team, and then I wanted to play on a club team, but there were no club teams for me to play on, so my brother was younger than me, a couple of years younger than me, and he played on the local team, Garston Boys, and I would go along and watch him play, thinking, I wish I could play, I want to be in this side. And I'd run down the hill, get the ball, and I'd dribble it back up or keepy up it back up, thinking, is any coach looking for me to be part of, do you think that I'm good enough for them to ask me to be in the team? And eventually my dad asked one of the managers and said, can she play? And that's how it started. But I had quite short hair back then, a bit of a tomboy, so I kind of looked like a boy. And when I started scoring, 6, 7, 8 goals a game, and word got out in the newspapers that this boy, Kelly Smith, is scoring all these goals, they're like, who is this kid? And then it got out, well, she's a girl. And that's where the problems happened for me. It wasn't the boys that I was playing with, it was the parents of the opposition. They had a problem with the fact that I was embarrassing their sons most weekends by scoring goals and dribbling around them. And so they refused to play against me. And that happened on 2 occasions. So my dad sat me down and said, Kelly, you're not allowed to play. This is a typical boys' sport. Why don't we get you into netball or hockey? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to play football. So he said, right, we'll find you another team. So we went across town to another team called Herons. Same thing happened, scoring lots of goals, getting attention. And then the parents were like, who is this kid? Oh, she's a girl. And then they were like, well, no. I would hear, break her legs, she shouldn't be playing, get her off.
Who was shouting break?
The parents of the opposition, yeah.
Of the boys that you were playing against?
Yeah. So it was very hurtful because I didn't understand. I was only young, and I was just like, I just was good at something, passionate about it, had an energy, and just these parents were being so mean and horrible. And my dad sat me down, I was in tears, thinking, this was so mean. I just wanted to play.
Oh my God, we have got 2 hours for this Q&A, haven't we? Oh my God, this is right at the beginning, so we need to fast forward a little bit, but you played for Wembley for a bit and you were picked up by Arsenal. And of course, women's football wasn't like it is now with the WSL and the fully professional league. I mean, it was a million miles away. Just briefly, can you just describe what the league was like then and why you had to go to America?
There was only a couple of teams that were really at that time serious about women's football. It was always Arsenal, and then it was Charlton and Everton. So the league wasn't very competitive like we have now. We were always in big men's kit, hand-me-down kit from the men's side. Vic Akers was lucky enough that he was embedded in the system, kit manager for Arsenal. So we'd get boots, we'd get big kit. We'd only be allowed to use the facilities when the men weren't there, when they'd gone home. We would have to run up the stairs because we couldn't, stairs at Highbury, because we weren't allowed to use the pitches there. We had to train at 8 o'clock at night when the academy weren't there, when the youth teams weren't there. All right, the women can go in now. So we was always second best. And I remember...
And that was you with the best opportunities in the entire country, by the way.
And that was Arsenal being the best team in the league and the most supported, but still felt that we were pushed right down at the bottom of the ladder. And I remember even when we moved into London Colney, the training centre where the women currently train now, and we would have to only allowed on site, but we weren't allowed out of our cars until everyone had left the facility. So all the men and that, so we'd literally, right, it's 10 to 7 now, we can get out and we can go into train.
After you've done a day job, most of you as well, because you're having to work.
Yeah, so obviously we were having to work or go to college, university. Even playing for England at that time, players were having to take unpaid leave to go and represent their country. And we'd get a little bit of money, travel expenses, food expensive, but a lot of the players were losing money to play for their country, which isn't the case now because obviously Hope Powell come in, she solidified central contracts that helped the players, train full time. It wasn't a big sum of money, but it helped us out because you have your England salary and then you had your part-time job on the side, which would allow you to train full-time, even though you weren't full-time.
And just want to touch on your time in America, because you didn't necessarily want to go to America as such. You didn't want to leave here, but because you didn't have even really a semi-professional league, I think you used to get something like £100 per game or £150 per game for Arsenal, and others didn't. And you were winning...
Paging Mr. Green.
Mr. Green. Is he another sponsor, is he? Oh. Hashtag get on side, Mr. Green.
Paging Mr. Green.
Who is Mr. Green? That's the next hashtag, isn't it? Who is Mr. Green? So you went to America and you went to college out there because they had a very different system. I am really conscious of time. I have to fast forward a little bit. But you really didn't want to have to go out there. And because of the type of personality that you are, you're actually quite a shy person, not on the football field. You're an absolute demon. Oh my goodness, were you a different character on the pitch. But off the pitch, you were very shy and you didn't actually particularly want to leave your friends and family from home. And that sort of manifested itself in really unpleasant ways, didn't it, which you've mentioned in your book and some of us have read all about. But you're able to tell us about those challenges and how you overcame them.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave the country at 17. I wanted to stay in England and be professional, but the league wasn't nowhere near where it is now. So I had to really get out of my comfort zone, being a young kid, and live that dream of being a professional footballer. Went to university, and then the professional league in the States happened. That was in like 1999 when the US women's team had just won the World Cup. So the game out in America was booming. It was really big. Mia Hamm, Brandy Chastain, Julie Foudy, big names. And I went into my first professional league there, playing for Philadelphia. And my first season, I injured my knee, heard a pop, went down with an injury. And I was, like you said, quite shy, quite timid. I didn't really socialise a lot off the pitch, and I really struggled with football being taken away from me. And always being in the physio room, seeing the team go out was really, really difficult. And I turned to alcohol to numb those feelings of loss. Didn't really know who I am, lost my identity. I spoke through my football, and I felt like my just me was gone. I didn't know how to be me. So yeah, I abused alcohol, got really quite low, depressed, didn't have football, got myself back. First game back, playing against the New York Power, went up for a header, landed, bang, same knee, heard a crunch. So I was just devastated again. Same cycle happened, didn't know how to get myself out of it. Was drinking daily. As soon as I got home from my rehab, drinking to oblivion, just didn't want to feel, was numb. And yeah, got myself into a bit of trouble. And it wasn't until I spoke to my dad, he said, "What the hell's going on?" And I broke down in tears and said, "I can't do this anymore. I don't want to play football," because it was just so hard for me just to not have it in my life.
Yeah, it's a very difficult time for you, and your dad was a big figure in helping you through. Was there anybody football-wise there to support you?
Yeah, Hope Powell. I confided in her, and she knew what I was going through, the turmoil. And she was the one that said, "Come back to England, and we'll sort you out. We'll get you the help that you need." So yeah, she's always been a big. One thing that she did say is, like, "I don't care if you don't play football again. I just care about you as a human being, as a person, and I just want you to be well." And that's how I started to get better.
You got better. You always had injury challenges when it came to the Women's Euros at 2005. I think you played with some kind of stress fracture of your foot, but you never seemed to be fit for the moments where you were really able to shine until the 2007 Women's World Cup in China. And some people might remember the iconic image of Kelly scoring one of your 2 goals against Japan in that tournament when you kissed your boot. And that's iconic. Do you remember that? Hang on, I need to get out of the way, sorry. There you go. Just tell us what you were thinking when you did that. And why, what it meant to you.
Well, I suffered a serious injury in the build-up to this, so to make that tournament and make the squad, I was just living the dream. It was always been my ambition to play in a World Cup on the biggest stage in the world. The whole world's looking, and you have to deliver in those big moments. And I remember laying on my bed doing my visualization the night before, and Brandy Chastain had taken her top off in '99, and that was an iconic moment. I just thought, I want to do something different. And it popped in my head, if I score, I'll kiss my boot. Or I'll just take my boot off and I'll just show it. And people thought after this that I actually got paid by Umbro, my boot sponsor at the time.
As
and
if.
I actually didn't. But yeah, it was just, I'm just meant to hold it up, and then all of a sudden I just ran off, all the emotions overtook me, and I ran to the corner flag, the teammates come and huddled me, and Kaz Carney ended up holding one of my boots up too. It was just like, it was all off the cuff. But yeah, that's kind of an image that I'm kind of known for. And yeah, it was to score 2 goals in that game in China was amazing.
You got told off by Hope.
I did, yeah. Hope Powell actually sat me down after, and she said, I don't want to see that celebration ever again. I'm like, oh my God, I've just scored in a World Cup, my first ever frigging tournament. And she goes, it come across as arrogant, and I don't want to see that again. And I was like, arrogant? I'm like, this has been my dream. And I was like, oh, okay, I won't do that again. She goes, you're good enough. People already want to kick you, and now you've done this, they're going to want to kick you even more. And I'm like, all right, fair point. So that was retired straight after it was done.
I'd have a nerve kicking you on the pitch, blimey. You were scary. I'm so glad I never shared a pitch with you, no offence. And then you came back. I mean, that really gave you a bit of a profile, because prior to that, there wasn't a great deal of profile for women's football in this country, major understatement, if we're using hashtags. And you were invited onto the Jonathan Ross show, and I think it was Morag Taylor, who's now with Visa, one of our partners, who was at the FA at the time, who went along with you. I seem to remember you being a little bit terrified. Is that fair?
I was petrified, yeah. You know, it was a big TV show at the time. Take That were on there too, which I was like, growing up, loving Mark Owen. Is it Mark Owen? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was like
Mark fan, were you?
yeah. So to be able to in the green room with them beforehand, I was like that nervous wreck, thinking, "This is my." I used to look up to. I fancy you. So yeah, it was unreal. And Jonathan Ross was really nice. He put me at edge, and then you just walk out and you just see all these black lights, and there's an audience. I'm like, this is not what I signed up to do. I was just a footballer, and now I'm on a primetime TV show.
You were shy then, but you're on telly all the time now. And when you worked for Fox Sports, they really kicked those nerves out of you, didn't they? They sort of gave you some big power outfits.
I think, yeah, media training helps, and the more you do it, the more comfortable that you get. But yeah, certainly, I remember when I was in America, I won this award for being the Offensive Player of the Year, and I was 19 at the time, and I knew that I was going to get the award. And the girl that come up before me, she won the Defensive Player of the Year, and she gave a speech. And I was like, oh my God, I can't freaking speak in front of all these people. So as soon as my name was called, I ran sprinting out of the door, hid in the toilet, and my coach had to come up and receive the award. That's how shy I was. So for me to do these things now, I've come full circle.
Yeah, it's mad. And you wrote the book with the late Lance Hardy, who did so much as a BBC producer, amongst others, for women's football. He was so passionate, wasn't he? And was it him or you that came up with the title of the book? Kelly Smith, Footballer.
It's quite...
Was that you, Kelly? It's a bit of a no-frill. Did Hope Powell tell you to call it Footballer? You're not calling it anything flashier than that.
No, that was just me. I was a footballer, am still a footballer. That's all I wanted to be, was a footballer. So it was just very basic, plain, boring, but that's me.
If you're on your phone, by the way, just go on Amazon or Waterstones. It's a brilliant read. And a lot more detail about your time in America, which made me a little bit sad when I was reading it on my holidays, but a lot of really good insight in there as well, which we don't have time to get into now. But what's your role as Barclays ambassador involved exactly?
Lots of things. One of the things that I love to do is to go into schools and talk to the kids, whether it's putting on a session or like we did the Let's Girls Play campaign, just seeing the enthusiasm and the love that they have to play. Speaking at different events, stuff like this. So yeah, I love working with them because they are so proud and passionate about football. They've obviously been involved in football for 20 years with the men's side, and now they've seen the growth of the women's football and really believe in that. And giving equal access to girls' football by 2024 is something that I'm extremely passionate about, because I said before at the start, I never had that, and I want girls. If boys have it, why can't girls have it? If they have a boys' football team, girls should have a football team. Because
there's an issue also. I mean, my daughter at primary school as well. I think girls with talent such as you would want to play with boys because you want the rough and tumble, you want the physicality, but some just want to try it and they're scared of the boys careering around the playground. They've played it since they were given a ball before they could walk, and they were given a Barbie doll and they're scared of the ball coming at them a million miles an hour.
And boys can be quite mean, say you're not good enough, you're not playing, and that could really hurt a girl's self-confidence. So if they're not good enough, that's okay, that's totally fine, but here's a bunch of girls that you can play with and feel comfortable within your own skin. That's what's important.
But you look at the talent that we have now in the WSL and the England team now, and so much potential in there. And that's from a relatively small talent pool of players who, just from my experience of interviewing players over the years and reading about them, so many of them seem to only kick a ball because they had brothers and they went along to training and they're bored and they kicked the ball around. What about the talent pool that's out there of little girls who don't have brothers and weren't taken to training and weren't given footballs, that now, given the opportunities to play from such an early age, regardless of the influences around them, imagine that talent pool in another 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. And that's why it's so important that we give equal access at this level at this time right now, because you lose so many young kids, girls, to football if they don't have that opportunity. And visibility is key now. You know, with Sky Sports coming on BBC, having the games on TV, these young girls can turn the terrestrial TV on and see their role models, you know, playing for Arsenal, Chelsea, Birmingham, whoever, and think, do you know what, I want to be a professional footballer and I can do it in this country. I don't have to leave to go to America like I did. For me, the WSL is the best league in the world in terms of the product, where it's come from to where it is now, the speed of play, the skill. The coaching staffs are really highly qualified. More and more clubs are believing in it. You know, good facilities that they're training in. Salaries are better than when I was playing, and all the top talent internationally want to come to this country now because of the product.
You think it's the best league, do you?
Absolutely,
Because you look at Barcelona, and I did my stats for the commentary the other night, and they're 61 points clear of the bottom team, whereas we had a 33-point differential, and it's 40 points in France, and the team at the top, Lyon, had won the first 15 games of the season. So when you say the best league, it's maybe not necessarily the top players such as Putellas, who plays for Barcelona, but in terms of competitiveness and bottom club, Birmingham City, being able to beat the top club, Arsenal, for example.
Their competitiveness, that's what I was referring to. But certainly when I played, games were a little bit too easy for us because we had the best players all at Arsenal. Charlton had some of them, Everton. So it was always like it wasn't competitive. It was a little bit too easy at times. So now I see this league here, and you know, Brighton can beat Chelsea, Birmingham can beat Arsenal on any given day, and the title's going right down to the wire. You know, and even the race for Champions League place is up in the air. So it just makes it for better viewing, and you don't want one team to run away with it, because then fans lose interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to play for. And in terms of punditry, you're getting to do that now. We see what Karen Carney's doing. Rach Brown-Finnis has been doing it for years. There are opportunities now for players when they finish playing to actually earn a living from talking about football or doing footballing things, which didn't happen. I was with someone the other day who saw Karen Walker, who was the number 9 for England for many years. I think she's a police officer in Hull these days. And it was never an option, the likes of Jill Coulthard, for example, to go and earn a living in football afterwards. How important is that now, that those career opportunities, which is what we're all about today, are available to women?
Yeah, it's vital. Obviously, Jo here was a big inspiration and part of that, pushing. I think it was Annie was the first woman on BBC. So it's people like Jo breaking down those barriers, and obviously
Jo just tells executives what to do. Don't be in any doubt what Jo Tongue, football agent, if you're not aware, extraordinaire, says. You don't have a woman on your panel, I'll give you one. She'll be there at 12 o'clock on Sunday.
But the women have to be knowledgeable. We are knowledgeable about the game. You know, we've played at international level, World Cups, Euros, Olympics. So we have the experience, the knowledge. It's being given that opportunity, and slowly but surely the TV networks are opening the doors for female pundits to be, you know, given the opportunity. And I just saw, is it yesterday or the day before, CBS had a whole female...
All 9 women, yeah.
9 women, yeah. I think 4 on the... Kate Abdo, the host, Leanne, Annie, Kaz in commentary with Lucy
2 commentators,
Ward.
2
That's the
summarisers.
first. You know, it's brilliant that we're now, you know, in these positions.
Yeah, exactly. But what about other roles in football when women finish playing now? How important is it that they stay in the game somehow? Because we lost so much talent, so much knowledge, so much experience. And I always think about Faye White, for example, the amount of experience she had leading a country and Arsenal for so many years, and how that knowledge and experience of how to be a professional footballer and how to conduct yourself as a human being while being a professional, some of that can just get lost because those people have to earn money somehow, and it might not always be in football.
Yeah, and I tell the girls, you know, if you're not going to make it as a professional footballer, there are other avenues for you as a referee, as a journalist, as a physio. You can still be involved in football in other avenues rather than heading for the professional end of the game. So there's so many more opportunities.
And what about you? You have two gorgeous, delectable little miniature humans who produce utterly the cutest things. And so, I mean, that's a almost full-time job in itself, and you're doing your punditry, but coaching and management. You mentioned on the 1 hour special Inside the WSL last week about how that's taking up most of your time at the moment, and how management is so all-consuming, as we know from the mothers who are managing in the WSL. Is that something you think you can do in future, or do you think
it's too hard? No, I don't. I really don't know how Emma Hayes, Kelly Chambers, all the mums, Carla Ward do it, because being a manager is so full on. It's so full time. Like when I was a professional, you just throw everything into it. You live, you eat, you breathe the sport, and you have to do that as a manager. And I'm just me as one individual going out and performing. Whereas these managers have to manage the whole team, their staff, while raising a family at home, and it is so tough. And I take my hats off to them to be able to do that. Even mums that have women that have children when they're playing, and then they have the baby, and then they come back and they get back into good physical shape, like Katie Chapman did, like Mary Phillip did. They're just amazing human beings to do that. But I really struggle with it, even now, juggling 2 kids at home, having to work, and I have help, and it's hard. If someone would have told me how hard it would have been, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But no, I would never wish my kids that I didn't have my kids, but yeah, it's very hard. And like, juggling, and when you're working on the weekends, the kids are at school during the week, and then you're working on the weekends, that's when you want to spend time with them, but then that's your industry, that's when you've got to work. You know how it is, and you're missing a school play theatre today, her kids, she's here. So it's what you have to do as part of being a woman working in this industry. You sacrifice.
Yeah, 5 weeks away in Russia went down well with my kids. They didn't notice I was gone. They didn't notice. I came home and they went, and you are? They do it every 2 years. Now every year, because we've got men's and women's. I need to not hog the floor with Kelly. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Kelly? You can have a think about it while I do a quick fire couple of questions for her. If you want to have a little think, and then pop your hand up in a moment if you do have any questions for her. Okay, toughest opponent in your career, Kelly? Who made it hardest for you?
I've got 2 that spring to mind, and that's Christine Rampone from USA. She was the captain.
She's a mum.
She's a mum of 2. And a player called Doris Fitchin, who was a German centre-half, both very good. So
Germans,
fast,
Kelly,
physical, yeah.
Nightmare. I won't mention 2009, that final. Which current WSL player do you rate most highly?
There's quite a few, but the one that springs to mind and really gets me excited and gets me off my seat is Lauren Hemp of Manchester City. I think she's got something different about her game, her running ability with the ball. She's so fast, skillful, can weave in and out, likes to take players on, can take players on, gets herself and the ball into the box, so she's untouchable. And I think she's a big, big player for England in the Euros if she's healthy.
You were never going to say Chelsea player, were you?
I would. I love Frank Kirby too. I really do. I think when she's on top of her game, she's another player that makes things happen. Hopefully she'll be fit again for England in the Euros, because those 2 are key.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any current players that you think I'd love to have played with them on the same team?
Miedema of Arsenal. I would have loved to have linked up with her. I think she's an outstanding player. For me, she's the best forward in the world. And I really hope she stays in the league. There's rumours of her going to Barcelona. But I think for our game here, you need the best players in our league. And pray she signs a new contract.
But if she goes to Barcelona, then she'll win 5-0 every week, and it'll be back to the days, like you said, you weren't challenged by winning 5, 6, 7 every week.
I think her goal, her ambition is to win the Champions League, and that's maybe she's thinking about that. Is that going to be realistic with Arsenal? Who knows? I'm not in her mind. I'd love to be.
And finally, if you hadn't have been a footballer, what on earth would you be doing?
I really love dogs, so I probably would have been a dog trainer or something. Yeah. I used to work in a dog kennel, walking the dogs, cleaning up poop. I've always had a dog in my life, so yeah. I actually did do a dog training course when I was back, but never followed it up because football. But
Interesting, didn't know that. Any questions? I really should wrap it up if not. Oh, yes, please identify yourself if you would.
Hello, I'm Kirsty. I'm from Southampton. Just a quick question. So obviously Kelly's quite successful, doing well in the current kind of punditry setting. What kind of skills do you think you've had to really develop to become quite a successful female within that kind of industry, and kind of how have you gone about developing those?
good question. I think you have to be confident in your delivery. Obviously, I have the knowledge. It's really breaking it down into layman's terms to the general public and explaining it as if they've never played football before. I think Jonathan Pearce said to me just when I've done the co-coms with him, he just said, just imagine it's me and you in the living room, and you're telling me how you see the game, and that really helped me, because I think sometimes you can get a bit in awe of, like, oh my God, so many millions of people are watching me, and you can be a little bit, oh, I'm worried about what I might say. But if you just take it back and just think that you're with your mate and you're talking about football, that I think has helped me.
Good question. Any others? Yes, hi. Oh, just down the front here. There we go.
Thank you. I'm Heather from Manchester City. I just wanted to ask if you thought us seeing American players come over to play in the WSL was a turning point, or has been a turning point for the league itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great when the world champions, Olympic champions want to come to this country. It makes a statement for me. For when Rose Lavelle and Sam Lewis come to City, that was big. Carly Lloyd, obviously, you had for a year. FIFA World Player of the Year. She's now in England plying her trade. Obviously, Tobin Heath, currently at Arsenal. It does, for me, send out a massive statement, the fact that they want to come to this country and play and believe that, you know, they're treated well and respected. So I think, yeah, I would like to see more come over.
Okay, well, that's just about it. Thank you for your questions. And Kelly, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. I'd urge you to buy Kelly's book. It's rather marvellous. There's a lot more info in there, but the great Kelly Smith MBE, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.